Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Portier Psychedelic Podcast. Within this podcast, we talk to one of our community members called Roku. Not his real name, but we talk to him since he is one of our experts on microdosing DMT. Can you microdose DMT? How does one do it and what are the effects? Since there is no scientific research on this is another pioneering talk. For those new to us, we are Portier. We create products and innovation to raise the standard for psychedelics in society. In our podcast, we travel to the frontiers of psychedelics and talk to experts, psychonauts, and pioneers in the scene. And you can also join our co-creative mission. Go to our website, portiersupplies.com, Portier supplies.com, and sign up for our newsletter. Together, let's build a brighter future for psychedelics. So today we're talking with Roku. And Roku is an experienced psychonaut. He has been experiencing his microdoses over the past week or weeks. What is it? How long have you been doing it?
I've been doing this for about 2 or 3 weeks.
As a basic intro, could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into psychedelics? What is your experience level in this field?
Yeah, no problem. I originally got into psychedelics when I was about 16. And this was during a period when I was learning a lot about like new sorts of spirituality, like Buddhism and Taoism, a lot of Alan Watts and all that sort of stuff. And at one point, a YouTuber brought up something called mushrooms and him having an ego death on that. I have heard about ego death on that before, but I've never heard of like mushrooms and all that sort of stuff. And after learning about after him saying that he had an ego death on the substance, it got me kind of curious because at that point I've only heard of like negative drugs. Mm-hmm. You know, like I thought like marijuana was really awful for a person. Mm-hmm. But as much as I continued to learn, I realized, oh, these are like the opposite of a bad thing. These are like really good.
Where did you learn about this stuff? Like you just been reading articles, or you've been following different teachers?
It was mostly through YouTube, honestly.
Yeah.
There was a few other people. I eventually went down to like Reddit, but that was only like a year or two ago, to be honest. And that was mostly for me learning about DMT.
Yeah, that's quite peculiar. And most people start with mushrooms, but you have not, right? You started out with DMT. What's the deal with that?
Have yet to try mushrooms. My first psychedelic was actually LSD.
Nice.
And that was awful experience.
So how did you move on from LSD to DMT? What made that leap? Because usually people do that later on in their journey as a psychonaut.
Well, because it's a really convenient substance, it's only about 7 or 8 minutes. There's not too much of a fuss. And being someone who's in-house, who is still dependent on households that are of people who are not too fond of drugs and all that sort of stuff, I need to find something to experiment with, but to also not get caught, basically.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to that, especially the younger people. How old are you now?
I am 20. I'm going to be 21 in February.
All right. Nice.
Fresh soul. So
Yes.
many more years to experiment.
Yes. Yeah, and just to dive into the microdosing thing. So what made you try it? What were your reasons for it?
Okay, so I actually had like a pretty interesting start with it. About a month or two, I was seriously depressed, like more so than I usually have. The year has been very hard. I had a scare with a friend. I got seriously sick and got really behind with my studies. So it led to like a really bad depression with like suicidal thoughts, which is something I never really had. And I know something needs to be done about it. So at that point, I talked to my psychologist. I talked to a doctor. I got some antidepressants. And I was pretty set on doing that. But I decided, all right, I'm going to do this. But before I do that, I am going to try some DMT one last time before I commit to this. And I kid you not, the trip that I had, that first trip that I had that started all this, made all of my depression just go away. I mean, it was just done. And I was very clear. I was getting back on school, and it was just everything. I was like, well, fuck me. So after that, I basically decided, all right, I'm going to try a little experiment. I'm going to do something I've been thinking about for a while, but never had any reason to commit to it. I'm going to do this daily for a while and see where it takes me. And yeah, that's basically what started all this.
So what was the protocol you're getting into, like your microdosing protocol, like dosages and substance? You can talk about which substance you've been microdosing with.
I've just been doing the synthetic NN-dimethyltryptamine sort of stuff. The last day I tried some Changa, but that was more as a celebration than actually a part of like the thing. And yeah, I haven't really had too many like set ways of doing it, other than just do it close to every day. And if I miss one day, don't skip it the next day or something like that. And the dosages have kind of varied. I prefer something so long as I kind of see visuals, at least. Just be it I'll, slightly see like some geometrical stuff or anything like that.
With open eyes still, or?
Usually my eyes are closed. I usually like to do it in the dark. But yeah, sometimes open eyes and like the light and all that sort of stuff.
Did we talk about like what the average dose? You eyeballed it?
Yeah, I eyeballed it. I loaded up about what was it? Anywhere between like 15 to 30 grams into my e-mesh, and I would just take slight little puffs off of that.
Okay, yeah, an e-mesh, for people who listen, is a device you have to assemble yourself with various parts, and there are tutorials online, and it's amongst the most effective ways to vaporize DMT. So from my understanding, you just took a little bit and thought like, okay, this is a low dose, and put it on. So it's not really a microdose, right? It's maybe like a mini dose or a small dose?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate, because my preferred way to do it would actually have some open-eyed visuals. I would not really do it just for like a feel, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in the mushroom world or the LSD world, microdosing can be like, okay, you don't really feel the trippiness, but you still get the medicinal effects of being more creative, or therapeutic effects of not feeling depression. But in your case, it was actually quite psychedelic, right?
Yeah, definitely psychedelic. To be honest, if I did do something without like the psychedelic feels, I wouldn't even know if I was actually experiencing anything or not. Yeah. It's so quick. Like you never really have like time to like, feel out of like, is this affecting me or not?
So you took it in the first thing in the morning, or during the day, or in the evening, and did you have some sort of ceremony before, or was it just been taken like spontaneously?
I was pretty I didn't really have a set time where I usually did it. It was usually in the afternoons, though. I usually like to do it in the dark, but I've done it a few times in the morning. For the first half of it, I did have a bit of a ceremony. I would basically get out my box, and
what kind of box?
It'd be the Portalbox. Anyways, I'd get out the box. I'd make sure all the lights are off. I'd get under a blanket, have my face mask ready on, and just take 2 or 3 breaths, and then, just inhale a little bit until I feel like, okay, this is enough. Then I drop my mask, and that's as close to a ceremony I got.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a ceremony.
It's a ritual.
It's a little ritual.
And a lot of people.
Ritual, yeah.
They put the mask on top of their forehead, and then once it starts working, they just like visors, they put them.
So you've been daily. So like, maybe you can tell us a bit about like how this went along. So how did it change in the beginning, and like, what did it feel like after a couple of days?
Yeah. At first, it kind of gave me. I'm not really sure what it'd be. Well, even to this day, like, I don't really feel like any depression. Usually I have some sort of like little bit of depression going on, just, like a day-to-day thing. But afterwards, right now, I don't feel any depression at all. And I haven't for the last month or so. So that has been one thing I've noticed. And when I was still going to school, the semester ended a while ago, but when I was still going to school, I had much more motivation to actually get my schoolwork done than I really ever have before, to be honest. I've always struggled with school, but with this, I've been able to find the motivation to actually get down to studying and get my shit done and all that sort of stuff. So that was definitely something I've noticed. Something else I've kind of noticed is, while I still don't really feel depressed or anything, I have been kind of overly critical about all of my like day-to-day aspects, like instead of, like laying in bed or like playing a video game on my laptop, maybe I should be reading a book or something like that. And it's been getting me to think more like healthily about myself, and, like sleeping in, all that other stuff. Like I have like sort of this more critical mindset, I guess, but I wouldn't say it's a negative mindset. I'd say it's more like, I need to work on this. I need to get this done. And it's more like me building myself up a bit. Like these are the things I need to do if I want to like, be a more better person, I guess. So those are all sorts of the things that have been happening that I can notice. Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty creative. I write down little notes I do for like, little fiction ideas I have. And I'd say that I've gotten a fair amount of new ideas while experimenting with this.
Mm-hmm. And did you experience any sort of negative effects or fatigue or anything from it?
I've been having a lot of nightmares.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's been very strange. I feel fine in my waking day. I feel pretty healthy. I'd say even pretty happy. But when at night, it's just for whatever reason I've been having way more, bad dreams and nightmares than I ever have before this.
Wow. Okay. You still feeling rested though when you wake up, or has this been interfering with your quality of sleep as well?
Depends on the quality of sleep, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And the first experience you mentioned that, you were struggling with some depression, and then since the first dose, you say that it hasn't popped up. Now, from a therapist point of view, it could be, that this suppresses, the real issue that is at heart from your depression. Is this something that came up during your first trip, or is it something that showed you the cause of your depression so that you can deal with the root cause? Or, because I want to figure out if it's a suppressant of a depression or an actual, something that actually solves the root cause. Can you say anything about that?
Yeah. So I guess what kind of started my depression is just kind of like, the stress I've had on this year in general. Being back in social society after, go from going from like the pandemic, and all the things that I listed earlier. I'd say that I was just at a point where it just kind of all just kind of hit me at once, I guess. The depression itself wasn't really a cause of anything that was happening at a specific time. It was just sort of like the dam just kind of broke down and all just kind of flooded at once, without any specific thing happening in my current life to have that happen. And I think kind of what DMT realized is that what DMT showed me was that I'm okay. I am fine with my day-to-day life. And basically, I don't need to worry about this right now in my life. And I can just, try and improve myself, I guess. And I wouldn't say that it was suppressing it, more that it was, showing me what was actually going on. Like, my second to last trip with this, before the Changa experience, I had this amazing experience where I had this epiphany where, like, I keep letting my mind run 1,000 beats a minute without ever just giving it a moment to, like, breathe. So after that one, I tripped 15 minutes after that, and I just had the most beautiful experience, just like letting my mind be free. And I broke down crying, like full on sobbing because of how amazing it was. It was like remembering something you just completely forgot for the longest time just hits you right in the fucking face. So I wouldn't say this is a drug that's suppressing my negative emotions. It's showing me what those negative emotions are and how to process that in a lot of ways.
So when did you stop this experiment now? Or how much time has passed ever since you...
My last trip was 2 days ago, and that was the Changa experience.
Okay. And now you're planning to give this a rest, or are you thinking of like stepping back into this microdosing routine, or do you think this is something you want to do every once in a while, or it kind of done its job now?
I think I am going to give it a rest. Definitely not done with this stuff though, but for now, I just think it's time for me to actually process this because, I have sort of just been carrying on my life the same way without actually changing too many aspects of my life. And I think now is really an opportune moment for me just to try and, adapt and try and put all the experience I've had, into my life, into my, day-to-day, and just try and live what those experiences have showed me, I suppose.
And could you tell a little bit about what you remembered in one of those trips that you just touched upon?
Yeah. So I have a few things about them. First, let me just say, like, a reoccurring thing is it was kind of like in the middle of my vision. Something that's showed up more than a few times is like have you ever stood in like two mirrors and like there seems to be like an infinite loops of you going on?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, that I sort of like saw multiple times like this standing guy, and just going on forever and ever. It seemed to have just been like this infinite loop of this one individual, and that's just sort of something that's always reoccurred, I suppose. And
Who was
another
guy?
Go ahead. No idea who it was. Maybe it was me on multiple different dimensions. I have no idea.
Right. So that was something that was recurring. And you mentioned some epiphanies you had, like where you remember something from your previous years. What was that?
I'm not even sure what it was. It felt more like remembering an emotion I have, some sort of clarity or euphoria, or just being fine with it. And that specific one, I do remember seeing stuff because I was out in the Minnesota cold, right over a freezing river. It was nighttime, and across the river was a number of factories, like inside like a little forest area. And so with that trip specifically, I saw like these 2 or 3 different factory lights become like this giant red skyline. And it was absolutely beautiful to see. And another thing that happened is on the other side of like this river, a train was passing by, and the train was so long and so big. This was real. This wasn't me tripping, but they kind of interlinked. And just realizing that just made me like realize like the whole beauty of like humanity, just like having all this, like all these experiences around me, just kind of overloading, like not entirely sure where reality began and the trip ended, I suppose. And it just having that whole, like my world just be enhanced on levels I don't fully understand was just absolutely amazing.
Wow, that sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, you also mentioned doing it outside, which sounds incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, in the Minnesota cold. That Changa experience. You saw that photo of me.
Yeah.
And that at that point it was like 17 degrees Fahrenheit, and which is about -8 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the cold just gives you an absolute feeling. I don't even know how to describe it, but it enhances it on a few levels I don't really understand, but it just something I think I'm going to prefer over to warmer weather.
If you're interested in this, I definitely recommend getting into Wim Hof, because he has been shouting about this for a while. Right, the magic of the
into the
and
ice.
how it can make you process DMT.
Do you have a swimming place close to you? An outdoor swimming location?
All the ice that is frozen over like 10 inches deep. Okay. Yeah. No way of swimming in that.
You messaged us on our community Discord, and you said that you couldn't really explain what followed, but the first trip you had was really hard. You say, I kept trying to rationalize everything, but it gave me a deep and hard epiphany. I've been thinking almost every second of my life, trying to focus majorly on ideals. I've never given my brain a moment to not focus on anything. So this realization, I decided to try again, and there's no way of describing what happens next. It was so amazing and beautiful in so many ways, like remembering an emotion you haven't felt in a long time. I started crying. It was absolutely fucking amazing. That's what you said. Right?
That's absolutely great.
Yeah, and
absolutely fucking amazing.
I think this resonates with a lot of people who overthink, and overthinking, especially in people who are intellectual or smart people. They can tend to stress too much about life, overthink things, and end up in a depressed state, right? So perhaps some of these psychedelic tools can allow us to reconnect to the fact that there's no need to overthink and overanalyze constantly, right? Was that something that it showed you?
Yeah, I'd say that's an aspect of it. You don't always have to chase ideals, because you as an individual are an infinite amount of things, and it's hard to remember that when you're always focusing on just being like a specific person. And having that memory of it is always good. Like I've brought this up multiple times on the Discord that I idolize Aldous Huxley. He always seems like such an amazing person, and just I wish I'm able to have basically as great as mine that he had and be such a great person while doing it. But something I gotta remember is that Aldous Huxley is not me, for better or for worse. And I need to focus on being who I am, and whatever that hell that may be. I must let that happen. And if I do that, I can't focus on being ideals. I can't focus on trying to focus on really anything. I just need to allow myself to basically allow my brain to shut the fuck up and just, just be for like 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I think I'm able to just figure out what to do a lot more better than if I'm just always thinking, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you have an action plan on how to make this happen in your life, or getting closer to a state of being?
No idea. No clue at all. But I'm sure there's ways. Like if I keep going with healthy habits and actually apply myself to my passions, I think that I think I'll be all right.
Yeah. I think our heads can get into the way of living according to what our heart says, what's good for us. And it's easy to get these things when you see them written on paper. Alan Watts also touches upon this, that expectations are your own demise, right? If you are already perfect and then you aspire to be something you're not, that's setting you up for depression, basically. And that's the root cause of depression, right? Not meeting expectations. But it's also a way to push you and motivate you. So there's this double-sided coin, right? How did it progress for you, and how did it lead up to your last Changa celebration?
Well, I mean, I think one of the main reasons I was doing this, irregardless of personal growth, is because of my school. And, I needed to do something to keep my grades up. And, just having some reminder to just be here now, I think really helped me progress with that. That plus a lot of caffeine. So that was kind of the first half. And once the semester ended, I went over to my grandparents back in my hometown, away from my college. And at that point, I think I just did it just to, I'm not entirely sure why I kept doing it, to be honest. But that was the point where I started going outside. That was the point where I started, realizing just to try and continue to improve myself. And that's also when I started, having trips outside.
Curious though, as how the Changa experience, what like the thing that led up to it, and how did it climax into this last moment of you being outside with your friend?
Yeah. So that experience itself, I've had some Changa for a while now, but I've never really had a chance to actually, experiment with it, give it a little taste, I guess. So I thought, what better way to end this deal than to actually give it a little try?
Yeah.
So I decided to meet up with my friend, who is the only other psychedelic dude that is in, my personal community. And we headed out to a little nature reserve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the experience itself, I wouldn't say had too much personal meaning, but it did give me a lot of euphoria and a lot of understanding of maybe the universe or something like that. So what I saw in it was was not too much of a hallucination. It was more just kind of my understanding of everything just kind of ripped away from me and just allowed me to take everything in, like through sight, through all my senses and all that sort of stuff. And it was an awe-inspiring trip, just to say. It's a very different experience from normal DMT. But afterwards, it just made me incredibly giddy and just incredibly happy just to have the experience. I wouldn't say it was much more meaningful than the DMT experience that I keep referencing, but it was a nice reminder of just what everything is. And that was a very beautiful experience. And I remember, I don't think I said this in the chat. I remember just having this and just like my mouth wide open, and I turned around behind the tree where my buddy was sitting, and he looked up to me, and he gave me the biggest smile, and it was just the most incredible thing to witness happen. just him smiling, and it just made me absolutely crazy, absolutely giddy, and it was just such a wonderful way just to end this whole thing.
Nice. Yeah, Changa is can be quite different, huh? And for people listening who don't understand, it's DMT mixed with an MAOI, which means that it's kind of like a short ayahuasca session, a little bit more earthy, less outer space, blast in outer space. So you ended your whole microdosing adventure with a big smile of your friend, right?
Yeah.
And I think it continued to smile. Like when I look at you now, like I see your face, and I don't know, I feel some change. No, like I kid you not, like there's some difference in your appearance.
Where was this a thing you could also take into your therapy with, you said you had some counseling or therapy. Is this something that could help within your therapy sessions as well?
Yeah. I see a psychologist once a month about, and I told her that I do these sorts of things.
Oh, wow. How did she react to it when you told her first?
I don't know if she's allowed to say that she thinks it's a good thing, but she wasn't inherently saying it was a bad thing. And I think she also noticed that
you made progress.
I improved a hell of a lot more from my last session. So I was fine with her knowing about that. And she didn't seem too disgusted by it at all. Yeah. So.
But you talked about the matter itself, or you just touched upon briefly, or was she asking you a question about those experiences as well?
I touched on it briefly. No, I went into a little detail too. I told her, to be honest, this whole sort of thing just completely changed my mood, and I will probably revisit this again if I need to. And she did not seem, just turned off by that at all. She seemed to be all right with me just being in a better place. I don't know. She didn't give me a lot to go off of for me to figure out what she was thinking, but there was enough there for me to realize, okay, I'm fine with telling her this.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So how many?
Your camera turned off, by the way.
Yeah. We noticed the connection was getting a bit worse, so we thought maybe this would stabilize a little bit, and it did.
How many sessions did you do in total, and did you have a set amount in mind?
How many sessions do I do in total? I didn't really have any in mind, but I think I did around 20 to 25.
Okay.
It was more.
That's a substantial amount. Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share from those experiences? Any experience in particular that you still feel like you should talk about?
Or any
I'm not
tip you
too-
would give, any tip you would give to someone who is maybe like thinking about
Any
the
tip?
same thing.
Well, that reminds me. One of the guys in the Discord, he kept wanting to know, like, so on a scale of 1 to 10, like, how much would you recommend this? And he asked me in like 3 different ways, like, to give me a yes or no answer. And to be honest, I really genuinely don't know, because while this experience may have went well for me, this substance is so crazy and so out there. I have absolutely no idea how it would react from person to person. I do this as a person who has a pretty open mind and is a very spiritual person. But I know people like my cousin, who's a pretty cynical guy. I think it might break him. I think he may lose a lot of his grasp on a lot of things he thought he understood. So with these things, I think you need to have a lot of caution and a lot of understanding of what you're going to get into, and realize that this varies from person to person, because let me tell you, this is one of the most craziest fucking things a human can experience. And with that, you need to give it the respect it deserves and the understanding that you are about to enter a realm that is completely unlike anything you have ever experienced before.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
Terrence McKenna, he said, we are not supposed to have this experience, folks. This is not supposed to even exist.
He said it.
Right?
He said it's not supposed to exist.
It's not supposed to exist. And it feels like that, when the world, everything has this function. And then we have this very profound mystical experience that everybody is looking for constantly within movies or video games, and then it's right there.
I don't agree with this statement, though. I think it's supposed to exist.
Yeah, but it's so strange, right? It's such a different thing that it's definitely not for everyone, and it for sure has its place and its reason and its way of use. But because we haven't done the research for decades or hundreds of years, we are still just getting a glimpse or grasping a little bit of what we can do. And I feel like this podcast is a little bit of a help, or this interview with you, shedding a little bit of a light, one of the early lights on this topic. So I definitely want to thank you.
Yeah, definitely. It was an absolute pleasure, guys. I love doing this.